For more than 50 years, innovation has been at the heart of Intel. From campuses to hospitals, battlefields to the stars above, we are trusted by our partners to meet their mission challenges head-on, accomplish their goals, and improve lives across the globe. Guided by ubiquitous computing, pervasive connectivity, cloud-to-edge infrastructure, AI and sensing, we ensure our partners are capitalizing on the full power of digital technology to drive mission success. With a commitment to US-based manufacturing, we are on the forefront of cutting-edge solutions that lead to a more responsible, inclusive, sustainable, and technology-enabled world. Achieve your mission faster, more efficiently, and more securely with Intel.
I would like to welcome to the stage to introduce our new guest, Michael Falkowski, who is with Google, and he is the Senior Manager for Google Federal. Mike, over to you.
Great, thanks, John. Last session, everybody. It's been a great day. Appreciate the introduction, John, and really would like to applaud INSA on another great event, and as well as all the important work that INSA does in supporting public-private partnership. Google is really proud and glad to be a long-standing partner in support of INSA and all the great work that INSA does for the community. So thank you for that. Again, my name is Michael Falkowski. I lead our go-to-market for the national security space within Google Public Sector. And for those of you who don't know, Google Public Sector was founded in 2022 in an effort to provide a mechanism for Google to have a little bit more flexibility and agility in giving the national security community and the U.S. federal government the support and Google Cloud services that it deserves to have. So whether customer interests align to all the artificial intelligence stuff we talked about today, things like advanced language translation, generative AI, LLMs, or if customer interests are more security aligned to the way Google protects its users all around the world, or our Mandiant cyber threat intelligence portfolios, or if customer interests are aligned around modernization of a global network infrastructure and network transport around the world, the way that Google supports its billions of users across 10 applications today. The role of the national security business portfolio at Google is to take that best that Google has to offer and bridge it to the needs and requirements of our national security space. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. And with that, it is now my pleasure to introduce our closing moderator and guest speaker. So first, our moderator, and I'm not sure either of these need any introduction, but I'll do it anyway. Dawn Meyerriecks is an independent director and board member, government, and commercial technical powerhouse. She brings more than 40 years' experience pioneering new products and services and leading transformation for iconic brands around the world, including CIA, AOL, and the Department of Defense. From 2014 to 2021, Dawn led the iconic CIA Directorate of Science and Technology, directing the organization's first restructure in their fabled 57-year history, defining and delivering global capabilities beyond the state of the art, even during significant workforce, societal, and health concerns. Dawn, we are honored to have you here today to guide this discussion. And now our guest speaker. Sheetal Patel was named the Assistant Director of the CIA for the Transnational and Technology Mission Center in January of 2022. Prior to that position, she was the Assistant Director of the CIA for Counterintelligence. Ms. Patel served as the Deputy Chief of Station and Chief of Analysis in South Asia. She has served in a variety of leadership roles in the agency, including Deputy Assistant Director of the Counterintelligence Mission Center. Ms. Patel was an executive assistant to 2 CIA directors and served as the National Security Council's Director for Afghanistan from 2003 to 2004. Dawn and Sheetal, thank you again for being here today, and we look forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. They saved the best for last, and I'm saying that about my, my speaker buddy here. Thank you, everybody, for staying, and thanks, Sheetal, for being here. Thanks, INSA, for giving us this opportunity. We thought we'd start maybe at 40,000 feet and then get to the AI piece and how everybody here can engage. So you all want to stay here till the end, because that's when we'll get to the really nitty-gritty in terms of how you can help. But to start with, set the scene. What are you seeing in terms of global technology competition, please?
Okay. Thank you, Dawn. And thank you, INSA, for the opportunity to speak. I don't speak on a microphone that often, so I apologize if I spit into it or do anything like that. And I do understand I am standing between everybody and beer and wine. So I will be as succinct as possible. But in terms of setting the global stage, what we have is an incredibly complicated world right now, right? We have a rising, ambitious People's Republic of China. At the same time, we have Russia, Ukraine, and Russia just proving that declining powers are incredibly disruptive, all in their own right. You have Israel, Hamas. Let's not forget the Iranians and the North Koreans. So in this complex global stage, we have in parallel going on a revolution in technology. And that pace of that revolution in technology is mind-blowing, how fast it's going. It's changing the way we fight, the way we live, what we rely on a daily basis. I don't think there's a generation that will not be able to be separated from their phones. It's just changing everything. Our refrigerators have chips in them. You can program your dishwasher off your phone. It's bizarre, nobody wants to do it, but apparently you have that capability. So it is changing everything, and it is literally what we would say is the modern day battlefield for global strategic competition. And it changes the way you look at technology. And then the other thing that we have focused on is kind of wrapping our heads around economic security is national security. And the heart of economic security is the health and protection of technical innovation, right? And making sure that we maintain that advantage is the most important thing. So that's how we're kind of looking at it, and kind of that holding the lead is the national imperative, and that's where we need to be focused. So if you want me to, I can talk about CIA and what we're doing in the organization.
That would be great. My heart is still pitter-pattering that technology finally has its rightful place in the sun. But
oh, you're going to feel even much better after this. So at CIA, what we have done is we looked at 6 tech areas that we identified as being incredibly critical for national security, as well as at the same time, they're very critical to ensure CIA can continue conducting operations, right? We have to still operate clandestinely worldwide, so we need to ensure we understand these technologies and that we can continue to work. So none of these are going to be a surprise. They all come up in different ways. They came up in predecessors to the Transnational and Technology Mission Center, which we call T2MC because it's a lot easier than saying that. It's like a tongue twister. But so the 6 are next generation communications, no surprise. We still are looking at 5G, we're looking at 6G, we're looking at open radio access networks. The second one is advanced computing, high performance computing, which has been discussed a lot today. AI falls into this, but it actually affects all 6 areas. Then quantum comes in the high performance computing, as well as, those are the 3 big ones that we're doing. Biotech is genomics, synthetic biology, right? Just everything that's in that space narrowed down to a couple of 3 areas, because we're not going to boil the ocean on biotechnology. We would need probably the entire United States population to take a look at it from an Intel angle. And then we have fintech, so crypto, central bank digital currencies, what does it mean with that movement around the world? Then there is next generation power. So it's batteries, nuclear, small nuclear reactors, and then microelectronics. Everybody knows about chips. So those are the 6 bins that we have looked at, and it's not that nobody was looking at these before. The agency has been looking at them for years. The IC has been looking at them for years. We just kind of rejiggered how we focus on it, and then looked at it as an actual intelligence domain in and of itself, not related to a weapon. And go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's great. Can you talk about how we're thinking about that in terms of our adversaries and those areas or some subset of those areas?
So if you look at our adversaries, the way we're looking at it is we know that in this global strategic competition, the PRC is just as focused on the same areas we are, and they are going just as fast. And they have a little bit of an added advantage in the sense that they can gear up their entire system to focus on it. Whereas you can really focus on one area, or you can put your entire private and government focus on it, which we can't necessarily do. We do it more in partnerships, not through coercion. Luckily, we have allies and partners that want to work with us, so it works out. I think we're in a better place because of talent, because of the tech advantages we do have in terms of hardware and software, but we shouldn't be kind of complacent about it.
Really, really interesting. Let's talk about AI in particular now,
Okay.
and rapid development of generative AI, which everybody feels like just hockey sticked all of a sudden. But how does that affect how you think about it and the competition between the US and the PRC?
So if we look at generative AI specifically, and let's look at China, right? 20 years ago, nobody saw China being where they are in technology. They are a peer or near peer on AI, high performance computing, hypersonics, biotech. And I think generative AI is one of those areas where, in order to get that comparative advantage, we are going to have to master generative AI and use it in a way that fits with our values. But we have to do this, and we have to get comfortable doing it. Right within the realms, the National Security Council is putting together national security memorandums on how to do it. The ODNI has AI standards, and then we have the Office of AI that has put together core strategies for CIA, right? There are 3 pillars for it. One is Intel, AI Intel, which is really the collection and analysis of what our adversaries are doing. So we're very focused on that, and that's largely where T2MC focuses on that particular technology. Then you have AI governance and evaluation, which is how do we use AI in a safe and secure manner that protects American rights, specifically privacy rights. And then the last one is AI as an enabler. How are we going to use it? And we really do need to get comfortable using AI, because we are very concerned, and it's come up a couple of times in the previous panels. I only heard the last 2, but in terms of our adversaries using publicly available AI tools to manipulate, enhance, change, right? Use it for malign influence. We know it wasn't geared towards the US, but we know that during the recent Argentinian presidential elections, presidential candidates used AI to influence their electorate. And so this is going to become more common as we go forward. It's going to become more robust, complex, and much more targeted. And so what we're trying to do is get ahead of it in terms of, let's figure out what our adversaries are doing, how are they using it, and then we need to get, in order to do that, you need to get comfortable with it yourself.
Yeah. Thank you. The last panel touched on it, but as somebody who's still inside, how do you think Gen AI will transform intelligence, and particularly with your background analysis?
How do I think it will transform it?
Yeah. Any part of it, but analysis in particular, since that's your...
I think it has the ability to transform every aspect of the intelligence cycle, from how we collect information, how we analyze it and disseminate it, and then how we present it to policymakers. But I will say for AI and machine learning in particular, that's not new. You were there, right? We've been using machine learning for ages to document translation, tagging of documents. What generative AI will give us is the ability to take disparate data sets and put them together, connect dots that we might not have been able to connect, or that it would have taken us several years to connect, which can now be done maybe in months. And then just help us do our jobs more effectively. So, for example, what we keep talking about in our office is it would be great if at some point with generative AI, we all had a virtual assistant. I would love it if somebody read my emails for me and told me where I needed to respond. But for analysis, having a generative AI capability that in the morning tells you if you are covering a particular region, here's all the key things that happened in that region overnight. Open source is doing it, but really, we in the IC have signals intelligence, geospatial intelligence, human intelligence, open source. If you had generative AI on those disparate data streams and you put it on top of that and used it, I think it's going to be a game changer. And I do think that the first Intel organization that does it, by nation, not a battle between the IC, but by nation, the first intelligence organization that does it has a comparative advantage that will go on for a while. And so I'm really hoping that we do that. I think it's going to just be spectacular. Or an officer in the field with generative AI who has to go out in the street and it tells you, here's not the places to go, here's the places to go. I think Chip kind of touched on that earlier, but there's so many applications to it. And once we get the guardrails and get used to it and comfortable with it, and a large part of it, as was said earlier, is going to be culture. I mean, changing culture is hard, but we're getting there. 2 years for our mission center, and I think the culture has changed. So it's not that long of a period of time to get folks to be very comfortable with generative AI.
That's great. And since you brought it up, how do you think CIA is morphing to deal with all of these tech-related challenges?
So I would say, I can rewind us a bit to 2022 when we stood up in January, or actually I'll take it back to January 21. When Bill Burns came in as the director of CIA, you were there at the time, he commissioned strategic reviews, and he wanted a couple of things looked at, and he thought, are we really focused effectively on technology? Are we really focused effectively on countering the PRC? Because if, it is not an exaggeration to say that the PRC is the most important geopolitical challenge we are facing and that we will face for the next several years. And that if we don't get it right, it will have consequences for national security. It will determine not just the future of intelligence agencies, but also our national security. So when that review was done, what came out of it, in a broad sense, are 2 mission centers and a chief technology officer. The 2 mission centers that started were the China Mission Center and then the Transnational and Technology Mission Center, T2MC. Both have a very strong, China, with obvious reasons, its name is China Mission Center, but both mission centers have a huge technology focus as well as a China focus. And what our mission center did is it refocused how we were going to approach technology. And it took us a while to get there because when you look at technology as an intelligence domain, it's very hard to explain to somebody how are you can go to the CIA.gov website and there's a tech page and you can send it in, it will get to us. There's also a very simple email that's t2mc@ucia.gov. And there are people who will answer that email because that comes to our office. We will get, if it doesn't really need us in my mission center to get involved, we will get it to the right people and then follow up to make sure somebody gets back. But there's other places, if there's tech specifically, there's Digital Futures, there's Open Source Enterprise, there's CIA Labs. But if you go to the tech page on the website, it's all there. And I would encourage people to reach out.
Thank you. That's great. All right, we're going to dive into audience questions
right.
if that's. Is there a particular priority you believe that the agency can address the best through collaboration with private industry?
AI.
You came to the right place.
All jokes aside, I do think generative AI, I think the private sector really has the beat on it, and I think working with the private sector on the large language models, the way the large language models are changing, and how fast they're changing and getting comfortable with it, I think is definitely one of those areas.
And so that's great. We have a whole ton of questions, not surprising, about AI, given the title of the conference. So how can we ensure AI technologies are safe? And that's a very broad question, but how are you all thinking about
I think this is
safety?
where our Office of AI is ensuring that whatever we bring on board or whatever we work with, the Office of Privacy and Civil Liberties in the agency, as well as the Office of AI, they're putting the guardrails in place so that once it is up and running, people can actually do their work. But I think it's going to be that hurdle of the day-to-day life of an officer has to change with LLMs, right? They have to get comfortable with that. And we're not quite there yet. So, but I think once we get the guardrails, it's in the works.
Cool. Cool. And related to that, do you think LLMs can be cured of hallucinations? Or are they, I love this question, are they the new Zeppelins?
You're the technologist, Dawn, you tell me. I have faith in the technologists to do that. To be honest, I'm not a technologist, so I don't know if they can be cured of hallucinations, because I still don't understand, are they going to hallucinate if the data set is finite and small? So I defer to the experts on that one.
Well, yeah. So I'll step out of character and say, I think everybody's going to do the best they can, but I don't think you'll ever completely kill the hallucinations.
There you go.
So, but you got to be smart about it. That's why you start with assistants, not replacements, right?
Right, and so going back to replacements, just to reassure everybody, I don't think the human is ever going to come out of intelligence, right? There is always going to need to have a person putting into context what a machine has deciphered, bringing in other contextual data that might not necessarily be coming out of a computer, and there's always going to be a human that's going to be needed to collect human intelligence.
Yeah, totally agree. I don't know if you have an opinion on this, but I'll ask the question. So, government and open source models versus proprietary models.
Oh, I wish I could say I had an opinion on it. I would go with anything that works.
Love it. Very practical. Yeah.
Whatever helps me and my folks do their jobs better, fine.
Yeah. And then rely on the guardrails around you. Because I know the CDAO is coming up with like, here's what we need to know about your sourcing.
Yes,
in order to accept the model that comes with. Yeah. They also have to factor it in just to add the inside stuff, right? So that's all part of the process.
It's a long process.
So what do you think is the biggest obstacle for AI startups who are innovating to be useful to the IC and to work with the IC? I know there's a lot of pilots going on.
There's a lot of pilots. I think sometimes it's just, there was just a panel here talking about accreditation and security and the process of getting in, and startups sometimes don't have that ability to sustain the longevity of the government process because you need an inject of cash if you're starting up. If you're an established company, you have an added advantage of being able to do that. And you know, our accreditation process is a process for a reason. And so I think that's where the startups have a slight disadvantage. Yeah. But the pilots are a great way to do things, right? I'm a big proponent of pilots, and I'm always telling my colleagues who do bring in the technology, we should do a pilot. This would be great, because it comes in faster and you get a little bit more comfortable with the tech.
Thanks. I have no other questions from the audience. Oh, okay. So that wine and beer clock is ticking, apparently. No, but feel free to send questions up. We'll be here all night. No, we won't. I'm teasing. How is T2MC integrating with other parts of the agency that are also engaging the private sector? Is there duplication of effort? And how is that being addressed?
So how are we
How is that working?
It is actually working pretty well. When we stood up, our job was not to take over all engagement. Mm-hmm. It was to make sure we understood the engagement that was going on, understood the risk calculus, and then just kept awareness of it. And what we have done is, I think there's a really good collaboration with most everybody in the rest of the agency of communication before the interaction takes place, and in these tech areas, looping in the working level so that there's more of a collective going to have that conversation than individual stovepipes. So I think it's much better than 2 to 3 years ago. And it's still a work in progress.
Sure.
We've only been in existence for 2 years. And I think it's better. Can it get better? Absolutely.
Yeah. Very good. Did we just get more questions? Okay. We'll keep going. How do you assess the funding and commitment for the 4 pillars of AI: hardware, software, people, and data?
How do I assess the funding?
Yeah. Are all those pillars being addressed? And
I believe in the agency, yes, they are being addressed, but that I can only speak to my organization.
Yeah.
No, I think, no, they're being addressed there. And the Office of AI is looking at all those 4 pillars. The collection and analysis side, I think we're doing a pretty good job on that. And as you know, it doesn't require a lot of funding.
Yeah, exactly.
It just requires people.
Another question? I see him. Sorry, I keep putting you on the X. Anybody else?
Anything. No?
Well,
I really am standing between everybody and
yeah, I know. I'm gonna. Please join me in thanking Sheetal for taking the time. So this has been very good.
Thank you, Dawn.
So thank you, Dawn and Sheetal, for providing such a strong close to today's program. I'd also like to thank all of our sponsors. Bear with me. Accenture Federal Services, Apira Technologies, Amazon Web Services, Base2 Solutions, BlackBerry, Booz Allen, CACI, Carasoft, Enabled Intelligence, FedLearn, Finch AI, Freedom Consulting, Google for Government, Intel, Mantech, Melwood, Percipient AI, Primer, Pura, Stealth Communications, and Strongbox Cyber Solutions. Please join me in a round of applause. And also, just several of my colleagues that made just showing up here and having coffee and then meeting you all in the bar later for a drink very easy for me today. Kudos to John Doyen and Bishop Garrison for the programming for today, as well as our INSA graduate student intern who graduates in May, is looking for a job in the intelligence community, Haley Epler, who put countless hours into the program today. And of course, our events team, Toya and Allie, for executing another flawless event. We hope you can join us right around the corner at Grand Cru for a reception sponsored by Booz Allen Hamilton. And thank you for joining us today. You all will receive a survey after this event. I really encourage you all to take 3 to 5 minutes to fill it out. We really do value your feedback, and a reminder that the recording will be available on our website early next week, so share with your friends. Thanks so much.